It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name is Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we are talking about The Subtle Art of Folding Space by John Chu.
Yes.
Would you like to do the plot?
Ellie is a secret universe maintainer. She goes into the secret plumbing that upholds the universe and fixes it. And when her mother is dying, her mother, one of the greatest maintainers, is dying. Ellie finds out that this is connected to a conspiracy among some renegade universe maintainers, and whether or not this involves her really awful older sister is something that she's going to have to find out. Also, there's dim sum.
Yes, there is dim sum in this book. Are there wizards in this book?
Basically everybody in this book is a wizard.
Yep. I assume that you have chosen this book for us to read because of the wizards.
Yes, because there are no lesbians.
No. There are gay men.
There are gay men, and there are women who don't seem to have much in the way of sexuality. I mean, Ellie's sister Chris has a husband, theoretically, but he never really shows up.
Yeah.
There are gay men, and there are women who are somewhere between straight and asexual. It's never really established.
But yes, this book is a wizard showcase, I would say.
Yes.
And in that spirit, why should you read this book?
Well, I find the quality of the prose to be quite good. I don't think it holds together as a book, which goes into the, why you shouldn't read this. But I found it interesting. Mm-hmm. I think it is an interesting failure.
Yeah, so this would be one for fans of Everything Everywhere All at Once. In that it is about, parallel universes and also about family drama. And there's some, wacky jokes.
And also about Asian Americans.
And also about Asian Americans, yeah. So if you want more of that, this is more of that. It's interesting. As you say, it doesn't hold together as a book. But it is, we do say that we want interesting things more than we want, good things here a lot of the time. And I guess this would fall into that category.
I would call this a really good example of somebody who is a good short story writer who hasn't quite figured out how to make the transition into writing novel length work.
That brings us neatly into why you shouldn't read it. And I have a bunch of subjective why you shouldn't read it, which I want to keep a little bit separate. Not that anything that we say is objective, in that sense, but I think that it's pretty undeniable that this book is padded. It's short, but it's
short, but it should be a novella or even a novelette.
It was expanded from a short story, and it really shows. I'm not with you on the quality of the prose, but even if you like the quality of the prose, it does use two sentences where one sentence would do quite a lot of the time.
See, I don't think that everything needs to be incredibly short and concise.
Yes, but there is short and concise where it says verbose, and then there's repeating oneself and repeating oneself and repeating oneself.
The problem for me, because again, I don't even mind occasionally repetition, if it's, doing something. And I do feel like the repetition here is supposed to be doing something. My problem is just that it doesn't, construction-wise, that it doesn't hold together the plot. It doesn't really have a plot that coheres.
That is another
thing. There's no real, there's no satisfying narrative arc that couldn't have been done in 30 pages.
Yeah.
Everything else feels like it's being stretched out just to fill a book. And for me, I can tolerate or even enjoy prose that's padded and repetitive if I think it's trying to do something interesting. But I'm less tolerant of that when it comes to plot.
Yeah. No, the book doesn't have the book tries to have a climax. I'll give it that.
It does, but it's such an unsatisfying one on every level.
Most of the characters are pretty static for reasons that I can get into later. or that the suspicions that I have about that I'll get into later. I only obliquely got into this later, but it has to do with the trustworthy men in this book who have to start and remain trustworthy at the expense of character development or characterization more broadly. In terms of, more feeling tone stuff, this book has a huge dollop of Silicon Valley brain. This book is autistic, and tragically, it is autistic in a slightly different way than I am autistic, and so I found it incredibly annoying all the way through. That is absolutely just me. That's an extremely
subjective criticism. That one didn't bother me.
Yes.
I will also note we had to push back the recording of this episode because this is a content warning, but the day that we were supposed to record this episode last week was also the day that a beloved family member of mine died of cancer, much as Ellie's mother does. And so I will note that it does push those buttons. Though not as effectively as I would have thought. There's something we can talk about more is I feel like there is a weird like emotional distancing going on, which I think is actually partially deliberate and interesting, but it does it contributes to it ends up feeding some of the failures of the book as well.
For me, it's like, if you read a summary of this book, it's like, it has a lot of things that I have historically tended to like on this podcast. It's like, there's a lot of food in this book, there's a lot of sort of wackiness, and cleverness. There is, family drama and reckoning with an abusive family member. But none of it connects, at least not to me. And I think that is due in some cases to a lack of specificity, in some cases due to the sort of overall feeling of alienation / distancing that you're talking about. And in some cases because I feel like there's a weird axe grinding going on that is not communicating its weight to me.
I also do think that this might be, in your case, a little bit of there's a thing where sometimes something that's 70% of what you want is actually worse than something that's not at all what you want.
Yeah, or something that's trying to do something in an area that you like and is not doing it in a way that pleases you is more annoying to you.
Something that you should like and don't. This is, I think, my problem with a lot of cozies is that, I should like it. I feel like I should like it because it has so many elements that I think I would enjoy, and then I don't, and that gap is what really makes me hate the work.
So, gentle listener, keep that in mind as we go on, because I'm going to be meaner than maybe is warranted as we go through this. But I think that just about covers that part.
Yes. So content warnings. I mean, abusive family, family member dying slowly of cancer, gaslighting, the usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
None of the bad things in this book feel like much.
Yeah.
But let's just get on to talking about it.
Yeah. Spoiler zone.
Spoiler zone. It's the spoiler zone, which I will not make into a food-based pun. So, here's a question to start out with.
Okay.
Can I use the phrase Marty Stew to talk about Daniel?
He kind of is. I thought it was Gary Stew.
Oh, it might have, and I think there might be two variations of it that I've seen in the wild. But yeah, no, one of the very strange things about this book is that we get a character who is good at everything. And we keep getting hints and like little breadcrumbs that there's something deeper and darker going on with him, that he's not to be trusted. And then it turns out that he's just good at everything, that everybody who he trusts is also trustworthy. And even during what to me was an incredibly hilarious climactic sequence, he doesn't, when he's taken out of the picture to provide some stakes because it's been demonstrated that he's Superman, he gets out of it on his own. He doesn't even need to be rescued. He deliberately stays in the wall for as long as it takes for Ellie to have her emotional arc with Chris before he's like, yeah, I could have freed myself anytime. What is going on with him? Why? What is the choice that is the series of choices that have come to creating this character and to using him in this way?
So this is definitely where I think, having read some of the author's other work, actually comes in handy, because I think one of the author's preoccupations is with like Asian American Superman.
Okay.
Like, you know, like he's written stuff. He wrote one that has a superhero love interest in it. And so I think that this is something that the author himself is interested in, is, you know, what does Superman look like if he's like me, would be my theory. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know the author, but it seems like it's if, you know, what would this Superman figure be like if you were gay and Taiwanese American?
Gay and Asian and autistic.
Yeah.
Superman. The big three.
Right, which I mean is actually an interesting thing to explore, right? Because these are three things that are all associated with, you know, demasculizing men.
It would be an interesting thing to explore.
The thing is that it works better when he's actually exploring it in a short story that's about this. It doesn't work quite as well. It doesn't work quite as well to just have him be a background character. It does make him sort of the ultimate token good man, but
this book doesn't need token good men. Most of the men in this book are good.
Yeah.
And this book is not interested in feminism. That is not on this book's radar.
Or femininity at all, really.
Yeah, apart from the concept of having a sister and to a lesser extent a mother.
Actually, no, that's not fair. This book is interested in a particular kind of like engaging with like particular kind of Asian older female relative stereotype.
Yeah. Which
I think it does in interesting ways, but not nearly as interesting as a different short story by this author. So I think, you know, I am definitely a little more kindly inclined towards this book, partly because I like his short fiction, and so there I can see a little bit more. I'm more likely to read some of the stuff that this book fails at as, okay, that was still a deliberate and interesting artistic choice. It just doesn't work for a novel.
Well, I would say that, to me, the reason that this particular choice doesn't work is that we never get inside Daniel's head.
I don't even think it's that we never get inside Daniel's head. We never get inside Daniel in any way. Like, we don't even need his perspective.
We don't need it to be his POV. We just need any kind of information about what the experience of being Daniel is like.
Yeah.
Or what it means for him to be in this environment and to occupy this space.
Right, and the thing is that Ellie occasionally sort of looks at him and shakes her head and goes, wow, this is so Daniel, he doesn't even notice X or Y. But Ellie is too preoccupied with her own problems to actually take, you know, that second step and be like, well, what does this actually mean? Like, what could... There's not even, like... Part of the problem also, honestly, is that their relationship is so close and uncomplicated that she never feels like she has to figure out what he's thinking. Which means we never get any speculation or like any poking at what it means to be Daniel.
My favorite example of this is the scene in which they have approached the bad guy of the book, who is, of course, the marketing guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie requests an exposition dump from him, which he then delivers. And, you know, I was like, okay, this is maybe the fifth or sixth exposition dump that we've gotten in the book. And then the book lampshades it by being like, Daniel was bored with this exposition dump. He got up, he fidgeted, he like stared around the room. He exhibited a bunch of autistic/ADHD qualities, while the boring man explained the boring background so that we could understand it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Are we going to do this instead of getting the exposition dump as a sort of lampshading thing? But then we also got the exposition dump after the page that was spent explaining how Daniel reacted to the exposition dump. And I'm like, you seem frustrated with this too, author, who's desperately trying to turn this short story into a novel. You know, I'm with you, but...
Right. It does actually kind of make me wonder... Because I think that you can get away with not explaining things in short stories, I think, because short story audiences of like speculative short story fiction seem to have a higher tolerance for not for the world doesn't have to be all built out. And this does definitely feel like one of the problems with this book is that the author keeps being told, no, you have to do more world building. And I think this book would have been better if there had been less world building.
Yeah, it falls into a really unfortunate world building valley, which, again, I will get into later.
Yeah, this book would have been way more successful if we just sort of, let the author do a Philip K. Dick thing of, why is there a weird machinery behind the universe? Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah, unfortunately, like the more it gets right to the point where it starts saying things that are demonstrably not how things work.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, leads it down some like unfortunate paths. But that does help me to understand what Daniel's deal is, which in the context of the story, I just found him kind of baffling. But I do want to talk about the sort of the central thing, which is Ellie has an abusive older sibling, an older sister specifically. I understand that this is also a thing that happens in a lot of this author's short fiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, very important that it's an older sister, because again, like, this family dynamic of complicated but lovable mom and just completely awful older sister also shows up in, it's something like The Water That Falls on You from Nowhere. Yes, that's what it's called.
As I say, like, I'm generally, I generally like it when family dynamics are interrogated. I like it. I mean, this book is very heavily inflected with therapy speak, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And we're interested in doing therapy speak about the various ways in which Ellie is in denial about the fact that her sister is evil. Like, I think just literally an evil person.
Yeah, no, she's absolutely an evil person.
And I was thinking to myself as I was going through this, okay, why isn't this working for me?
Right?
And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that.
I do. Because, okay, so like Chris, Ellie's sister, absolutely, I look at a lot of the stuff that Chris is doing and I go, wow, my mother pulled almost the exact same shit, except without like the trying to destroy the universe parts.
Sure.
And so, okay, so why isn't this working for me, right? I should be finding this super resonant and then at the end super cathartic. And part of it is that I think the author, in an attempt to make it really clear how awful Chris is she's not good enough at it. Like,
yeah.
The thing is that, that kind of, the kind of emotional bait and switch that Chris pulls, the kind of gaslighting that Chris pulls, the way that, Chris has managed to convince Ellie that all sorts of really appalling things are, to get Ellie into the position where Ellie is like, I know that this feels like an abusive thing, but clearly it can't be. These are all, I think, very realistic dynamics, but they're so obviously, patently ridiculous that it doesn't make sense that everyone around them is falling for it. Like, Chris should just be a little more competent at her gaslighting. And I know that's a weird thing to say, because if you look at abusive relationships, like, often you will see just the most ridiculous cognitive dissonance happen, because that's foundational to abusive relationships, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't feel like... Ellie felt like she was just a little too self-actualized to be believing in this stuff.
Yeah.
And, I think you get it either way. Like, either Ellie has to be way more sucked into Chris's orbit so that she's believing, so that she really is still buying into this stuff on some level. Or Chris has to be a more competent, slightly more subtle, just a little bit more deft at the horrific emotional abuse. And so that is why it just didn't quite ring true to me in a way. Like Daniel, who lived with them for years, should have noted, obviously knows that this stuff is going on. Daniel should have noticed, like the assassination attempts. He should have found out about those beforehand, because Ellie is clearly comfortable talking about them and making excuses for them. So Daniel, who's our Superman, should have intervened, and that he hasn't. Again, it doesn't quite feel like the balance was struck right. It feels like there's an attempt to blow up all of Chris's abusive tendencies in a way that makes them really stark and unmistakable, because otherwise the reader won't understand that, no, this is abuse. But as a result, it ends up coming off as weirdly unconvincing of an actual dynamic, but just tonally slightly off. And, when something is 70% right, sometimes that's worse than being 100% wrong.
Yeah, we run into that again. And I think there are two things that this book wants to communicate that I think are true things. One of them is that dynamic. And I think for the reasons that you said, it doesn't hit it. I think it starts in a very promising way to approach that. It does.
Like the first section of the book where Ellie is just where Ellie's like, oh, it's another assassination attempt. And you go, ha ha ha, that's kind of funny and also a little bit fucked up. And then you see her sister possess somebody. And, like, the first chunk of the story, I think, is way more successful than the rest of the novel. And that is one of the many ways in which it is.
And that is to me where that, if I were to put a finger on why it doesn't work, this is where I would put it, is that we have set up this abusive relationship with a couple of striking metaphors,
Right.
One of which is the assassination attempts via reality altering magic.
And one of which is possessing people to harangue her, which is a great, way of I'm going to sabotage all of your relationships before you even get a chance to form them.
Right. So you got, these both lead into like paranoia. Like, is she as bad as I think it is? How much of this am I making up? Could this be all in my head? Am I being gaslit? Am I actually crazy? Which is a part of this dynamic, which this book never touches. And these two images and motifs would lead themselves very well to again, as you say, Philip K. Dick style, psychological horror. But this book is so cozy and so safe, like from maybe page 10 onward, that it does not want to touch the implications of what it's talking about.
Well, the thing is, I don't think that's 100% true. I think it wants to touch the implications, but it keeps flinching away. So, like, the scene with the funeral is actually pretty great.
Yeah, no. I would say I'm putting maybe 10 pages as an exaggeration. The funeral is within the good part.
Right. It's actually, I think actually the funeral is kind of the last part. Is after the funeral is where a lot of the stuff seems to fall apart for me.
Yeah.
But the funeral works really well, partly because, now you're seeing a lot of these things that you've seen happen metaphorically are now happening in just like the low-key actual interpersonal family relationships with people like, staring and muttering and being kind of rude to her. And
where does the real horror or the real, disassociation live in the science fiction or the horror novel? In the realistic stuff. This is where you really get that feeling to come across.
Right, the funeral was the place where, kind of the last place where the stuff that was going on with her sister really rang true for me.
Right, and instead of escalating the tension along those lines, what we get to escalate the tension is, oh, there's a car bomb. Oh, there's another slightly more difficult to defuse car bomb.
Right.
Which is another thing that was baffling as a choice.
Well, okay, yeah. The initial car bomb thing actually worked okay for me because the degree to which Ellie is just like, well, I don't think it's Chris because she never repeats the same assassination attempt. That was, again, another good example of the way that this stuff becomes normalized, right? Yes. Oh, it's a car bomb. That could be my sister. Except, no, wait, my sister already did a car bomb. So clearly it's somebody else. I'm going to be, fairly blasé about it. Whatever. We all know I can handle a car bomb. Was great. It was then, but then the second slightly more difficult car bomb was like, come on, really?
Yeah, and the second slightly more difficult car bomb happens after the book gets into the Audie zone, Daniel's mentor, which is where I felt like it really lost me.
I didn't really feel like Audie was doing anything narratively useful in this book.
Audie, to me, was shoring up. Audie is like a plank in one of my readings of the book, which I will get to. I believe on reflection that the second car bomb is there to establish Audie's power level. A power to surpass even Super Daniel. But that kind of leads me to the other thing that I like that the book does, and that the book wants to say. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I like that the book says, and I think it actually pulls this off really well, is the people who run the machinery that keeps the world going are just as prone to weird interpersonal politics, resentments, jealousies, sniping, obliviousness. I like the way that Adi is just like, should have caught this, just didn't, wasn't paying attention,
Yes.
I think that is really well observed, and I think that sort of the understated horror of that does kind of work throughout the book.
Yeah, including actually, that's a place where the novel is unresolved, but I think it actually works. Is where they're like, well, there's no point in telling the chief architect about any of this.
Right, sequel hook, but yes,
sequel hook or not, right? Like it also just even if there's no sequel, great, that's true. There's no point in telling the chief architect about this.
So yeah, I think that Adi's role in the book is to be like one of the good ones who's in the system and is like senior in the system, because it's very important that Ellie can have like multiple strong male mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure that it's an accident that all of her strong mentors are men. It's even if it is an accident, it sticks out to me. Maybe that's because of the podcast that we're doing, but it sticks out to me. As opposed to like the sort of the unreliability of the chief architect and the difficult mother, the mother who gets off far more lightly than she deserves to here. And,
yeah, I want to talk about the mother in a little while, but
yes, and of course Chris, but I'm not going to go too hard on that. It is, however, just a thing that happens.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And now Isaac will reveal his thesis statement.
So I'll get into the thing that I want to go off on, unless you want to go off on something.
No, you do your thing first, and then I'll do my thing.
So this book is an entry in a genre that, when I'm feeling nice about it, I call hypertext, existential hypertext. When I'm feeling not so nice about it, I call it dimension slop. Wherein we have a nested series of it's simulation theory basically has gone much more mainstream and has just become part of pop culture. The Marvel movies love to do it. It was a big thing in action movies for a long time. You get it in some of the most weird and interesting stuff that's going on now, which is like interested in interrogating what it means if the universe is a simulation, how real you are, which this book is not interested in at all.
Mm-hmm. Which honestly I'm glad about, because I get a little tired of it.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been beside the point.
Yeah.
But the particular way in which this book does it grinds my gears a little bit. Because first of all, the fact that the idea that there's a machinery that keeps the universe going, that there's a secret cast of people who maintain that machinery is core to what the book is doing. The universe runs on code, essentially. So the secret cabal of people who keep the universe going are coders and engineers. And then the evil people are the people who want to run a Silicon Valley company for profit, who the just and good coders and engineers are struggling against here in this internal civil war.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that really annoyed me is that the MacGuffin here, the reason that these people trapped Ellie's mother in this sort of living death state is to make her into a sort of quantum generator, right? She's the Schrodinger's cat who goes in the box.
Right.
And the exploit that they've coded into the universe was like, it's what they say is, well, whoever implemented this universe, and it's like, we never ask how this whole thing got started, but that's a separate issue. Whoever, coded this universe chose to put quantum mechanics in it, and it is here that in the quantum mechanics part that this exploit is possible. I'm not a science person. That's not how that works.
Yeah, well.
It's not like an option that you can turn on or off. And the thing about this, in the context of this book particularly, that annoys me is that the evil plot of the Bargaining People is to change the universe in such a way that some people just can never be coders and can never be engineers, right?
Yeah.
And thus to make the system which enriches and protects the coders and engineers more unfair than it is now. That's the bad thing that is going to happen. The idea that it is at all fair is based on the idea that anybody can code, which is an idea that this book puts through.
That puts through, and that people who can't code can do. It's entirely through lack of interest.
Right.
It's like Ellie would be happy to teach anyone to code, and doing so comes with like all of these, like you can teleport, but somehow nobody is interested enough to ask Ellie for lessons.
You get this wide range of reality-breaking powers, which incidentally render all of the stakes completely immaterial. Like some guy shows up with a gun at some point. It's like, what are you doing? Even the narrative lampshades this. It's like, why do you think a gun is going to make any difference? Like, for that matter, why couldn't you have just fixed your mother? Why couldn't you do literally anything? Because the powers that this demonstrates that they have are whatever is convenient for the plot in any given moment. But that aside, anybody can code, just like anyone can sing, says Belt Sander.
The opera
Belt
singer, yes.
Sander. The book is so proud of Belt Sander.
Whatever. That one didn't bother me.
It wouldn't have bothered me if the book hadn't stopped to make sure you noticed. Because I was already like, stop explaining everything that you're doing to me at that point.
Yes.
But
like, if you just let it be cute, it would have been cute.
Right. Downright Pynchon-esque even. But Belt Sanders says anyone can sing. And unfortunately, that's not true. Some people are tone deaf.
Like most people can learn to be, reasonably good singers with enough time and effort. But there are some people, it turns out, who are just completely tone deaf.
Yes, and by analogy, unfortunately, it is also not true that anyone can code.
Well, and also, I mean, as somebody who's really interested in learning more about both music and computers and did not have the family resources or, stability or infrastructure to take advantage of either, it turns out that, if you don't have access to these resources, like, it turns out that there aren't people just hanging around, by and large, being like, oh, I will teach you.
Yes, I mean, there might be, you can then, like, bracket this all and be like, this is self-justifying stuff from the perspective of this set of characters who are part of an elect, who are not interested in questioning why they're part of an elect or how they're part of an elect.
Yes. But I don't think the novel successfully pulls off does not successfully imply that that's the case.
Well, yeah, particularly because the entire structure of the multiverse that it lays out is saying the other thing.
Right.
It's saying, like, uncertainty is an option. It was probably a mistake. Essentially, in other universes, in other iterations, the universe is entirely deterministic, which means that it is a Turing machine. It's complexity that arises from simplicity. It's like, if you can code, you can create the universe, which is an idea that is very much in vogue with certain Silicon Valley priests. Mm-hmm. This is something that, like, whenever I see it, jumps out at me. And, like, shout out to Casella, who is also, as we discovered in the episode that we had him on, really annoyed every time somebody gets quantum mechanics wrong. But this is annoying to me on the level where like Catholic theologians will continue going back to geocentrism because it's better with their understanding of how the universe goes. There is a projection of an entire fictitious way that reality works in this book, which is the basis of a whole lived arrangement where the basis of these people's prosperity is not actually unfair,
Yeah.
And like, I understand that I'm diving deep to get to that, but like, I just wanted to take a moment to sort of get into what I think is a mindset that people just sort of accept a lot of the time, particularly when it's like glazed over with, all of the sort of the quantum fuzz and technobabble that, you get in this book.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you get right up to that point and it's like, if you you can't change the chirality of a substance without changing its physical properties, numbnuts. You can't remove quantum mechanics, numbnuts. That's not how anything works. And the world isn't fair. And there is no inherent virtue in the straightforward people who you can trust always. There is no inherent virtue in the people who are trying to social engineer in the way that you code. This book hates liars. It hates people who are manipulative. But it does so in a way where it is like, if only everybody's brain worked just like mine, everything would be great. Which is why it makes sense that people like me are currently extremely privileged.
And there is definitely a sense of, oh, well, if we could all just be, if everyone could just be properly straightforward and honest, and then interpersonal conflicts would never arise. Is definitely a vibe that this novel gives off.
Yeah. And that's ultimately why the sister mother narrative didn't work for me. Also, another thing that this reminds me of, a very, very different book, but similar in certain very specific ways, is The Book Eaters. And the way in the climactic sequence that Chris just climbs into the death coffin her own goddamn self, and Ellie doesn't actually have to do anything to her or about it. Very reminiscent of The Book Eaters. It's like, even at the end, I don't have to do anything that might be morally entangled me anyway or be bad, because being good is something that can be solved for.
Right.
And now Alexis will reveal their thesis statement.
This gets into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about.
Go for it. I feel I've said my piece.
So yeah, I mean, part of it is the, Chris climbing into the coffin. It's definitely Ellie should be able to keep her hands clean. It's not just like being good is something that can be morally solved. It's also, this is the book telling you that, don't worry, Ellie's decision to unhook her mother from life support was 100% the right call. And I mean, the thing is that we already knew that, and so we didn't need the narrative to keep hammering it home. The thing is, it ends up making it less convincing, right? If there's if it feels like this is an actual moral dilemma that, Ellie has arrived at, which is, the one that I would probably make in similar circumstances, I'm inclined to go, okay, you made a hard choice. But it's not a hard choice if the structure, underlying structure of the universe, and also the narrative structure of the book both make it clear that, no, you made the obvious good choice. Then it's not hard, in which case it was a trivial choice, and sure, you might be feeling sad about it, but we're all sad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that this is part of, the bit where she just doesn't think about it, dissociates, and just fixes the problem in front of her, which results in her mother's death, and doesn't let herself feel those emotions in the moment, and then is just sort of moving forward in a, slightly walking wounded kind of, I'm still doing my job kind of way.
Yeah, that was great.
All that really good. And again, that's before the funeral, before things start getting weird.
It's up through the funeral.
Yeah. That is that's how she deals with it through the funeral. And that all felt very true. But yeah, no, then rehashing the same thing and putting it through this metaphorical, metaphysical lens, which again, because the basis of the metaphorical, metaphysical lens doesn't hold up, makes it feel less true and makes it feel more magical.
I don't even need the quantum stuff to make sense or whatever. I mean, heck, I can read science fiction that relies on Sapir-Whorf if I just go, well, this is about metaphor. If the rest of the metaphor is good enough, I can roll my eyes. But
it's fine. But it's more. It is as much what the metaphor is saying than the tools that it's using to say it that I'm objecting to here.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, there's also just the matter of can you pull off making the metaphor ring true? And it does initially, and then it goes it tries to hammer it so hard that it ends up breaking it. And so the thing is that okay. So I think that there's some really interesting stuff, because I told you before the podcast I wanted to talk about Confucianism. Because there is a really interesting Confucian family dilemma here. It is a hard choice, right? It's the universe or your mother. And there's no way to win that dilemma. Except if everyone around you tells you that you've made the right choice, in which case, again, it stops being interesting. And there's sort of I really like the ways in which this book is about the failures of Confucianism, because a lot of Confucian filiality, because a lot of the time when you get criticisms of that, it's solely about like the patriarchal, hierarchical, top-down, you have to respect your elders at all costs. And this is much more interesting because it's poking at the ways in which the reciprocality of Confucianism fails. I mean, part of why her mother is such a bad mother is that she's not willing to, she's neither willing to like exert her actual, I am the elder of this family authority over Chris, but she's also not willing to cut Ellie out of this necessary, out of this necessary family dynamic. So yes. And this is also why Daniel is part of this family, is that Daniel gets kicked out for being gay, and Ellie and Chris's mother takes him in because obviously you don't abandon family. And right. So, this actually, again, is one of the places where the family dynamics I felt did a very good job of ringing true. There's this family overall, so when it's the dynamics I care about, and when I don't have to make the hard, so it's family overall when it's the decisions that I already want to make, but not when it's destabilizing the things I already want. So Ellie is happy to be a good daughter to her mother, and she's trying really hard to be a good younger sister to her older sister. And her older sister is at least pretending to be a good daughter to their mother, but she's not doing the things that an elder sister is supposed to do. And nobody's holding her accountable for this. Not even Daniel, who's the only other person who's looking at this and going, that's fucked up. And part of this is because, Daniel is trying to opt out of the entire system. Daniel has basically gone, well, I'm gay. I don't have to care about this. Mm-hmm. Which, again, I thought was, sort of well depicted. But, so, all of that I really liked. It's interesting. It's setting up, good, true-to-life family dynamics. And then having Chris just have this ultimate meltdown of, I will show you who's actually the good daughter, really broke it for me, partly because we see Ellie and Chris's mother suffering from, she has failed to either move on past this Confucian relationship system, but she won't disengage from it, but she also won't lean into it. And now as a result, she's the victim of elder abuse from her controlling daughter who's starving her. And so then it seemed like, no, Chris really does believe that she can, reshape the universe in a place into which she is the good daughter. Maybe there's a way that story could have been told that would have been convincing, but having Chris kind of turn into a cackling, insane supervillain as opposed to a sort of petty, manipulative one, just really, again, I felt like I was really waiting for this dynamic to get interrogated and, to resolve in one way or another, for those stress points to really come through and for people to realize this. And it didn't. It kind of ended up affirming that, no, actually, that was just the choices that her mother made, and the real problem wasn't her mother, it was Chris.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that maybe we can elaborate that by connecting it to the other fundamental framework that makes the world go, which is the architect's company, the Skunkworks people. Mm-hmm. Because I think in both cases, the book is really interested in looking at the ways in which the default role that social relationships are supposed to work within these systems, which exist for a reason. And that reason is that they, in the one case, in the case of Confucian family expectations, they keep the civilization going. And in the case of the Skunkworks, they keep the universe going.
Right, like these two things work really well together, right? Because in both cases, you kind of have the family, the small unit is the microcosm of the larger unit, which is the microcosm of the universe.
Right, exactly. And I think that it pulls off this interrogation better in the case of the skunk works than it does in the case of the family, unfortunately. And
which is unfortunate, especially because it pulls off narratively, the family is way more interesting.
Yes. The chief architect is kind of being mom here in this sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she refuses to disown the bad member of the family, who in this case is the marketing guy.
And she also refuses to, like, exert her legitimate authority over the bad member of the family.
Right. And she distrusts Superman because she thinks that he's not getting with the program, which is a distinction from the way that mom treated Daniel. But,
right.
Like, because Daniel doesn't fit into her view of how, like, this particular family structure should work, she doesn't trust him, even though he is perfect.
Yes.
So, but yeah, no, I think that, like, there is, unfortunately, if that was to work properly, Ellie would have needed to spend more than a few sentences thinking about the ways in which her mom failed them.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of, her mom failed them big time. Her mom failed both of them.
Right, like, it's obvious, because, like, I not that, you know, Chris is a sympathetic person in any way, but, like, Chris has this giant gaping emotional wound of, you know, you were the favorite, she always loved you more. And that, you know, that doesn't just get caught, you know, it's not like she was born with that as her supervillain origin story. That clearly comes from a failure of parenting.
Yeah, I think this book is sort of doesn't like to it's not interested in acknowledging the extent to which we're the products of our upbringing, actually. Like, it seems like it thinks that Ellie's inability to think about Chris in a true way is a bug that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, and there's a thing, again, I'm going to bring in The Water That Falls on You from Nowhere, because it also has complicated but ultimately good mom and just flat out evil older sister. And in both of the cases, I read this and I go, the sister is too evil for me to, you know, say, oh, you have to have some sympathy for her. But the sisters in both cases are a fairly good depiction of, you know, the ways in which the stress of being the eldest can break somebody, where it's, you know, there's this responsibility, and there's this responsibility to guide and boss around the younger sibling, but, like, to actually exert, you know, it's an unfunded mandate for you know, in terms of how you're supposed to take care of your younger sibling. You're supposed to take care of them without having any authority over them. You know, you're supposed to guide them, but you can't. But, you know, if you yell at them and let them annoy you, but you can't ever yell, you know, break or yell at them, which, again, the classic parentification, if we're going to use therapy speak. And this doesn't justify turning into a horribly abusive, manipulative, gaslighting older sister, but there's no wondering of, what about this dynamic has led these, you know, both of these fictional narrative sisters to turn out this way, and, you know, what expectations are they trying to live up to that they're, you know, that they feel like it is impossible for them.
I agree. Segue jingle goes here.
And now that both theses have been presented, like two slices of bread, now we may arrive at a delicious synthesis sandwich.
I do want to talk about food writing.
Yes! Yeah, because there's parts where the food descriptions are good and there's parts where they're a real letdown.
Yeah, and I thought this might be a good moment to let us think about, because we talk about food writing a lot because we both really like good food writing and
good food.
And good food, obviously. And so what is it that makes good food writing good is question one, and in what ways is it present and absent here is question two.
So I think the ways in which, part of what makes good food writing good, honestly, is specificity.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Naming the dish and showing that people are getting to eat it. Like, you don't actually have to lean into the sensual experience of consuming the food. It's just, just like Redwall is a great example of this. All you have to do is give a fairly descriptive name of the dish and what it is, and show that somebody's excited to eat it. And when we get that, and honestly, the point where she gets a turkey and cranberry egg tart, and you're like, that's pretty good food horror writing right there.
Yes, that is true. The sort of the difficulty that comes up when it's trying to, talk about food that is good is that it does try to stop and explain why the food is good. It has
Right.
the following notes: soy sauce, ginger, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
Right. I don't actually need that.
I know that.
Right. And I think, so part of it is also, if you're going to show that people are enjoying it, it is useful, I think, to show how the thing compares to what it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Right? So, the egg tart, is the crust as flaky as a good egg tart crust, or is it actually kind of soggy? Are we talking about Hong Kong style egg tart where you have the sort of, much smoother, clearer custard? Or are you talking about Portuguese Macau style egg tart where you have like the caramelized topping and the much creamier custard? I want to, that's the sort of thing I want to know. And is the custard sufficiently creamy?
And like that attention to detail also reflects to me like the author is interested in the details of this. The author cares about this food, and getting the details also means that you have to get the details right. There's a thing that stuck with me here where one of the characters orders a smoked cocktail, which is a thing. I've had a smoked cocktail. The smoked cocktail is pink. If you know about the way that like cocktails tend to work and what a pink alcoholic beverage is likely to be like, your immediate thought is going to be, I don't know if that works with smoke. What's going on here? What is this pink drink? Please tell me more, or else I'm going to assume you don't know what you're talking about. And like, I think that, you do have to hit a certain threshold of like actually naming the thing. And because, we like lists. Going back to Redwall,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the rest of the food is most of the food descriptions. I don't know very much about cocktails, so that just went right over my head. But like most of the food, when it comes, like sometimes some of the food descriptions are good, even when it's just like, oh yeah, your scan dump is a loaf of bread. Well, sometimes it's Brussels sprouts and a balsamic glaze reduction. That was great.
Sure.
That's an appropriate amount. That's really all I need.
I think that like the other thing that food writing tends to, the other thing that food writing is good for and that it works well with. I was thinking about Light from Uncommon Stars when I read this book, because this thing feels superficially like Life from Uncommon Stars in a few ways.
That's true. Life from Uncommon Stars, which I know I was quite harsh on when we actually covered it, but I will definitely, boy, that thing, I don't even like donuts, and boy, that book made me crave donuts.
Yeah. But part of the thing that came through in Light from Uncommon Stars is specificity, not just of food, but of place. Because of course, food belongs to culture. It's important where the food is coming from and who's making it, in addition to what it looks like and what it tastes like, and the environment in which you're eating it and all of this stuff. And I think that this is actually sort of co-locates with the way that Daniel keeps conjuring food out of nothing, which is also to me a deeper problem with Silicon Valley mindset and deculturalizing and decontextualizing, things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you pluck even the most perfect delicious food out of nowhere, it misses something, because who made it?
Right.
Why did they make it? For whom did they make it? That is like an integral part of the eating experience, which is largely absent from here. Although it is also a way that Adi's bona fides are shored up, is how good a cook that he is.
Yeah, actually, I think that it works when it's initially introduced, because the first food that Daniel manifests is an egg tart that tastes like turkey and cranberries, which that's great one sentence horror right there.
Mm.
That's great. It's like, okay, you can make your food appear out of nowhere, but something is deeply, deeply wrong with this egg tart. I really like egg tarts.
Yes.
And the last egg tart I had was so incredibly mediocre. But just like that was great. Cognitive dissonance. I can really imagine the experience of biting into an egg tart and having to like search around and place the flavor and realizing that it tastes like turkey and cranberries and just being horrified. Oh my God, something is definitely wrong with the universe. And the problem is that all the food that Daniel manifests after that is too good. And then it just becomes food, right? When he's manifesting food and it is a scan of the universe and it's like, okay, well, if the egg tart tastes like an egg tart, then the universe is working well. That is fine. But when he's just like, oh, I need to feed you, here, let me magically make food appear, that is where it fell short for me. And I think you're right. It's because there isn't a sense that this was lovingly crafted or unlovingly crafted or crafted at all.
Yeah, or the product of labor, or et cetera,
right, like
et
it's just
cetera.
Daniel just spontaneously manifests food, which is a funny yet another way in which he's perfect. But and again, occasionally I feel like the food descriptions nail the one where she's eating like the duck's the little duck bow. That's great. The crackling duck skin. And the smear of hoisin sauce and something acidic that she can't quite place. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now I want to eat kaya.
Yes, me too.
But I think a lot of how I judge food writing is, does this make me want to eat the thing?
Yeah, I mean that's the litmus test, but I just wanted us to like delve further into maybe asking why it does or does not make us want to eat the thing here.
Right, and I think you're right that just having it magically appear makes it feel. I don't actually want to eat food that magically appears.
Well, this is like, I'm going to quote Carl Sagan here. In order to make an apple pie, first you must create a universe. The thing is that the universe that exists in this world, because of the way that we're construing the multiverses and the way that we are construing the powers of the coders, this is functionally post-scarcity. Which we don't get into the broader implications of course, because why would we? This all takes place within this bubble culture. And the thing about food, one of the things that makes food precious and one of the things that makes it taste good is that it requires resources and time to create. That is part of the reality of a thing, not to get too materialist about it, but
I mean, the thing is, so to some degree, the food that Daniel is manifesting is, I think, supposed to be, this is the physical manifestation of his love for his cousin, who's basically his sister.
Sure.
And so there are times where that works, like the kaya, because, and I think that's when it's very specifically, like when the food is doing a thing. Like when Daniel's magical food is doing a thing, I think it works better. Because then okay, fine. The food is a metaphor. Is it a metaphor for the functioning of the universe? Is it a metaphor for, how much he loves his cousin? But it starts to become a joke. And that unfortunately, it kind of, it feels like the book wants it both ways. It wants this to be sort of fun, whimsical magic, and it also wants it to be like metaphorical, having both narrative and metaphorical weight. And you generally can't have things both ways. You got to commit.
It ends up having no stakes.
Yeah.
That was a pun because a steak is a kind of food. A name can be funny on multiple levels. Sorry, that's a quote from the book. That's Belt Sander talking about his own name. A name can be funny on multiple levels. The actual quote is on multiple axes, which is arguably worse.
Her awkward conversation with Belt Sander is, I think, a good example of how there's a lot of things in this book where it feels like the book is gesturing at or building to some sort of interpersonal conflict, and then it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like Belt Sander doesn't end up doing anything in this book.
He's a pun attached to a concept.
you know, and I get like he's partly there, I guess, to validate Daniel, but the thing is that Daniel seems so like close with and attached to and, you know, devoted to Ellie, and yet she has never met his boyfriend. Even though all of these people can teleport.
Daniel couldn't be gay without his boyfriend, and it's important that Daniel is gay.
For his power is based on 3 things, and that's one of them.
You know, and it would be fine if the boyfriend if the boyfriend were doing anything. Even if just the narrative stakes are, is Ellie gonna actually get a chance to decide whether or not this guy is good enough for her cousin? Like, that would be fine. But she meets him, she's like, oh yeah, you're fine. And then that's kind of it. And then he just sort of shows up occasionally to not do anything.
Now it's time for notes, and that reminds me there is research that suggests that people who grow up with tonal languages are more likely to develop perfect pitch than their counterparts. This doesn't mean they're necessarily better at singing, but it does give them an advantage in certain fields. Life isn't fair.
We should probably steer into winding down at this point.
Yep.
Do you have any further notes?
Not off the top of my head, do you?
Actually,
I did have one because you're talking about specificity, and that was, you know, a good example of the specificity of place is every time Ellie tries to take the red line.
Yeah, that is true. That is the way that this book is fundamentally taking place in Boston.
I mean, most of it isn't. It's in DC, and it's weird because DC, I don't know as well, but I didn't like get a sense of place. But Boston, the scenes that are in Boston, boy, are they in Boston.
I keep thinking that we're in California. The book just feels like it's in California to me.
You just haven't taken the red line enough.
That's true. Let's see here. Oh, in order to use, we were talking about like being overwritten and versus not being overwritten, which I know I have more of a problem with this than you do, but there is a point here where one sentence, the chief architect is shorter than Ellie expected. Next sentence, Ellie expected someone taller.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, and that definitely.
I feel like we're reaching for a word count in a few places.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's definitely places where it's like, okay, no, stop. Just let this be short. Let this be a novella.
In Re, the secret conspiracy, I don't think you can be saying cabal, Chinese baby. But
yeah.
But I know that's a losing battle.
Yeah, no, you're right. Nope.
But that's just about it. I really didn't like this book, which is probably clear. But I think that it's not complete. I mean, there are things in it. I feel like this book really suffered from the process of turning it from a short story into a novel. I think this is probably. I haven't read the short story it's based on, but I bet I would like that short story more than I liked this.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's pretty much where I want to leave it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's. I like this more than you did, but largely because I think that the ways that it fails are, you know, it's doing so many interesting things, and I feel like it doesn't really succeed at any of them. But I do think that, you know, watching the ways in which it fails was interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a problem getting through this book, and I'm enjoying our continued commitment to, if we're doing stuff, it should succeed in an interesting way or fail in an interesting way. And I'm glad that we talked about this one.
Yep. Same.
But next week
we are doing
by popular demand.
No, not by popular demand. I had already started reading Hell's Heart by the time all 3 requests to cover Hell's Heart came in.
And by our standards, that is like a torrent of public interest is 3 requests.
Actually, at this point, it's 4 requests because also Leora was like, you're absolutely covering this one.
Yes. We're going to be discussing Hell's Heart by Alexis All next week. So tune in next time for that.
Yes, we will cover Sapphic Moby Dick in space. Don't worry. We're on it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Belt plays Prince Charming in Rossini's Cinderella. That means he must be a heroic tenor.
This is the kind of specificity that we are looking for from this text, and I appreciate it in this instance.